Progressive is America's #1 motorcycle insurer, so we understand motorcycles. No, really, we have a bike translator.
Okay, so this bike feels like he's capable of a little more than just trips to the convenience store. Oh, also, he wants to let you know that you can buy a gallon of ice cream instead of a pint every time. Those are his words. So he said roughly like, blink the last wheel. It doesn't really translate, but the way he said it was super funny.
Get 24/7 roadside assistance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Roadside assistance subject to policy terms and limits and may require comprehensive coverage.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle as well as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. You get all of our content, including this weekend, the pregame and postgame shows on the Miami Dolphins versus the New York Jets. We'll see if the season ends. Also, check out 5reasonsports.com. That's where we give you all of your content without a paywall and the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. If you got a water leak, you don't know where it's coming from, you're dealing with water or mold damage in your home or business, call Water Cleanup of Florida. That's at 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. Michael, Robert, the whole team, they're based in Boca, but they service all 3 counties down here, Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach. Again, check them out at WCUFL.com. They're fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide the one-stop shopping that busy homeowners and business owners require. No need to bring in other contractors. They'll handle all your leak detection issues. They can do it all themselves. So reach out. Again, here's the information, 954-579-0356, WCUFL.com. If you've got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
And now, today's episode.
Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. We did not do a stream on the YouTube channel after the Heat's game against the Lakers. It was not because, it was one of the most pathetic performances of the season. It's simply everybody was sick last night. So basically we took a rain check. We didn't show the effort last night. And now we're going to talk about the effort of this team. So a little bit hypocritical, but I don't think we can get away from it at this stage, because one of the conversations the conversation we've had throughout the season is the personnel good enough, right? Like we've talked about that. Is this roster good enough when healthy or even when not healthy, which has been the case most of the season? But they were pretty healthy last night as we're speaking against the Lakers. The Lakers were not healthy. The Lakers did not have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It's completely inexcusable to lose that game under any circumstances. I don't care what they call that arena now. I don't care what step of the road trip you're on. You don't lose that game. And we're getting to the point now, guys, where it's like, what's the worst loss of the season? Like, we need to think about it. There's like 6, 7, 8. And so every time that this team starts to build some traction, where they have a good win on the road, where they have a big Tyler Hero shot or something else like that happens, they slip right back. They can't sustain anything. And then you look at some of the metrics of the game against the Lakers and just the eye test, like, it's not enough. Like, you're playing against a team. Dennis Schroeder's killed them for years, but I mean, come on. I mean, you're giving up 31 to Dennis Schroeder. Westbrook's got a near triple-double against you. Kendrick Nunn was flaming you in a way that he hasn't done to anybody since he left you. And you had everybody. You had everybody. You had the whole damn team. I mean, we've talked about them not having the starting lineup. Not only did they have a starting lineup, they had Oladipo, they had Strus, they had Vincent, they had their core group together. They even had Dedmon, although that didn't turn out to be such a good thing. They had their rotation. I mean, with the exception of Duncan Robinson, who hasn't been in the rotation for most of the season and now has had surgery, and we'll get into that on another episode and how that affects things. But it's just completely inexcusable. So I guess we're going to look at some numbers tonight to see, like, is there an effort problem with this team? Because, like, Brady's not on the pod tonight, but his first response after watching the game last night was they just didn't guard the point of attack at all. And I don't know if that is, again, if that's personnel, but you have Oladipo, you have Vincent, you have good point of attack, you have Caleb Martin, you have Jimmy Butler. Like, you have guys who can do that. You have Bam. You cannot allow Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook to combine for more than 50 points against you, Greg.
You know what else they had, Ethan? They had 4 days in Los Angeles, and I don't think that that's necessarily the best city for focus, I'll say, but that's not necessarily something we typically worry about with Heat teams. I hate to say this because this is going to go dramatic and it's going to be over the top, but I have to say that if this season continues as it's going now, we're getting in the conversation of, like, as I think back on the most disappointing seasons in context of what you thought you had coming in versus what happened throughout the season, and just having, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo playing as well as they are and not winning. I tend to start thinking about this being one of the more deflating seasons since in the whole Riley era. And I know that there's a lot of heartbreaking scenarios we can go through that have happened. We don't need to unpack them all, but there's a difference between Jimmy missing the shot in the Eastern Conference Finals and feeling that kind of heartache, and then also this kind of season where you thought they would be better and they're just, whether it's effort, energy, or it's personnel, it's not working.
And it's right there for them right now. Like, maybe not the top three, but we've talked about getting out of the play-in, and they go into that game against a battered, bad Lakers team. We were mocking that team when they had LeBron, when they came into Miami a few nights earlier. And you have an opportunity to just basically grab the 6th seed, like, which we've talked about, just get out of the play-in and then build from there. You got Indiana and New York ahead of you. Like, we're not talking about world-beating teams here. And you can't focus in that situation. And I don't want to hear the LA thing. Look, they've been going out to LA for years. I was out there last year when they did the Clippers Lakers back-to-back. Okay. They had a little bit more time out there. I don't think they flew to Vegas in between. I don't believe they did. I lived in LA. Okay. LA closes at 2:00, like most places. I know you can find after hours places. Okay. But LA is not Vegas. LA is not even New York, not Miami where they live. It's no excuse. Okay. It's just inexcusable losses. And you're right. We're getting to the point where it's just like, do they care enough? Like, and that's my other thing on this. Okay. We've talked about how they've looked disconnected at times this year, that they don't look like they're all on the same page all the time. They look sort of tired. And I did have a conversation with a former Heat player who was in here about a week and a half ago. And I don't know that I've talked about this on the podcast, and I'm not going to mention the name here, but who still speaks to people in the organization, who kept using the word stale with me. He kept saying, they just say it's stale. Okay. And it's similar to what was going on after the bubble. And I think in nights like last night, we see that. It's just, there's a staleness to it where it's like, okay, do you guys want to push through? But I'm going to go to Alex here, because there are some numbers that Brady and Alex and others were looking at before we got on the podcast. And I'm just curious how the numbers play into this, because I don't know how much of it, honestly, is just not caring enough, not being connected enough, or it's the personnel that's leading to this. So, Alex, break that down a little.
Well, I mean, we're kind of peering through some stats here. Shout out Tony Fiorentino, the legend. But really, when you're going through some of the hustle stats on NBA.com, very cool. It's helpful when you're trying to figure out, the effort stuff. And really the only thing that stands out, and Brady pointed this out in our chat as very different from last season. I was looking through all the other ones, but is the loose balls recovered. Last season, they were 5th in loose balls recovered per game. And this season, I think they're in the bottom 5, if I go and check that right now. Whereas the other hustle stats, when you look at deflections, when you look at screen assists, I know screen assists have been memed to death because of Rudy Gobert, but I guess you could count that as an effort thing too, because of the, the effort it takes to properly screen. When you look at charges drawn, they're second in the league. When you look at contested 2-point shots and 3-point shots defensively, they're in a similar place as they were last season, just because that's kind of what their game plan is built for. So they have the lowest contested 2-point shots defended in the league, because they're pretty much always going to send help and protect the paint. And one of the highest, aka bad, contested 3-point shots because of the way they defend, where they're going to concede the threes. So a lot of it really stands up to what they were last season and their game plan. And really the only effort thing I guess you can look at is the loose balls recovered. I don't know how much of it is effort. I don't know how much of it is, the personnel, it's just tough to really
well it seems from what you're talking about, Alex, it's personnel that's leading to scheme, which is leading to some of the stats, right? Like that's the line here.
And then eventually they're deflated.
I mean, right? I mean, is that right? And then it cycles back, because then it looks like this is a non-virtuous cycle, right? Because then that stuff starts to happen, and then the players start to hang their heads. And I think this is what Jimmy talks about too, where it plays into both ends. You have a bad offensive possession, you're missing shots, and so then you don't get back. Did you go over, I might have missed it, did you go over the transition defense numbers? Because that seems to be a consistent problem this season.
No, but I can get that for you really quickly. Hold on.
Okay, so you look that up while Greg and I debate this a little, because I think that, as we look at it, I think it's a little of all of it, right? Like it's players kind of coming into the season frustrated that there weren't changes to the roster, right? It's players being out, some because of significant injuries and some because of maintenance, right? It's role changes, which can be frustrating. It's again that personnel deficiency, in terms of size, which is leading to scheme machinations that create some of these numbers. And then when these numbers start to play out, it bleeds back into the players getting more frustrated, and then you don't sustain effort. That's the thing about it. Just watching them, last night is like previous Heat teams. Like, Greg, you and I are going to go way back before Alex's time, but we talk about like the Road Warrior Heat teams, okay, and those kind of teams. Like they would have squashed the Lakers last night. Like even
Absolutely.
If they, right?
Yeah.
Were Zoe and Tim and Dan Marley and that group going to let that happen? No, right?
No, there was just a different disposition to the team. And that's why I think it's so disappointing, because we saw these guys with a similar disposition to every Heat team we've ever loved last year. Right. And so, okay, all the same faces come back. Great. Why is it not working now? And I just think we can't run from it. We're 40 games in when the next game is played. So at this point, like you listed off all the reasons, and I think some of them are totally valid and some of it they can't escape from. But at some point you have to ask, what are you going to do about it? And when are you going to just acknowledge the fact that this is the reality that you now are as a team? And I think that identity crisis is really, it's hitting them different, because I think of all the things they thought that they would be able to count on, it was like the disposition of the team, right? And then now that's gone. So that's just particularly challenging.
Well, the disposition is the perfect way to describe it, because it gets into that T-shirt that they sell, right? And the hardest, where the Zoe, comment is hardest working, most feared, that whole line. They're not that this year. Like they're just not. And we talk about personnel, and that's part of it. But I do agree that I think the front office thought that they would get more consistent effort. And then it comes back to, okay, are they not getting more consistent effort because the team was frustrated? The front office didn't do more. I don't know. I know that in any other situation, we would be talking about the coach having trouble reaching them. We're not talking about that because all four of us on this podcast are like Eric Spoelstra believers. And that we know that he ultimately figures it out and typically has his best months after the All-Star break, that there's a build and then you have a run. But there have been some seasons that it just doesn't happen. And that's what I'm wondering now, because now you're past the point of the excuses of you don't have everybody. You had everybody against a team that had nobody. Okay. I mean, you've got a semi-washed Russell Westbrook. Dennis Schroeder could not find a team Okay, could not find a team until he went and played for the German national team. Like nobody, I don't understand it because I think for what he does, he's a quality player who's always hurt the Heat. But like he could not find a team. You cannot give that guy 31 points. You just can't. Like somebody has to. I mean, in the old days, like Zoe would have put his ass on the ground. Like there's none of that is happening this year. There's no
no layup rule, right?
I go back and but I go back to Pat Riley's story about the Knicks when he got to the Knicks and the marketing department wanted to do some fancy slogan. He's told this story many times. He tells it a lot when he gives speeches. And the marketing department in New York wanted to give some fancy slogan. He says, "No, I want chalk outlines. That's what we do here." Okay, and that was Oakley and Mason. And where is that on this team? It doesn't seem to be anywhere.
Well, and I don't know that those prototypical players, those Mason, Oakley, PJ Brown, Alonzo Mourning types are really on this roster. And I think that intangible thing that maybe no stat we could peek at would ever be able to quantify is kind of what they're missing. And like, that's when we talk about Eric Spoelstra. And I think, I've thought maybe we should start a new segment on the show called the complaint department, because my DMs get filled up with Heat complaints often. And they're starting to be more about Eric Spoelstra and how his season and why aren't we talking more about it? I mean, last night, I think it was pretty damn obvious he had a bad night coaching. I thought personally that it was not a great night for Eric Spoelstra. But there's been a lot of those. And then also we know that we can count on Spoelstra and you believe in what he's doing. So ultimately, I don't think he's been given the right ammunition to necessarily succeed. But at some point, he does have to look inward. And then this becomes a conversation about kind of the collective group of like, what the hell is everyone working toward this season? Because it looks listless.
Well, it looks listless. And I think, and I'm going to go to Alex on some of these numbers after the break because he's got more. But it also is, if we're going to identify the one place they miss PJ Tucker, it's this. It's not the other stuff. I understand the decision to keep Caleb Martin over him. I understand the decision not to pay the extra year. I agree with those decisions. But if you're going to identify the one place that they're missing him, it's that he did add that element. They don't have anybody to add that element now. It's just not their thing. It's just not what they do. And Dedmon did some of this stuff a couple years ago, but he's become sort of ineffective as a player. So I'm saying it's not. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's kind of putting it kindly at this stage, right? So, you don't have anybody to do it. You just don't have anybody to do it. All right. After the break, we'll get into some more numbers here that may lay this out a little bit. We do want to mention a couple of other great sponsors here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Prize Picks, use the code 5 FIVE. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. You don't have to play it all at once. You can play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players together. You can match. They will match again that money. And again, there are no rollovers here. So it's basically free money. And you can play power play if you want to go all in, the flex play if you don't. We've got like 10 to 12 people in our network promoting their picks on the 5 Reasons Twitter account. And I can tell you, they do a lot better than the average. You might want to follow them and make some money. So sign up with that code 5. I've noticed a ton of signups lately and not depositing. You can't make money if you don't put any money in. Okay. And again, they can't match the money until you do that. So use the code 5 FIVE. I also want to mention another great sponsor. We didn't get to them last night because we didn't do a post-game show, but it's the consulting group that sponsors us. It's called ODMPSI.com. That's ODMPSI.com. They can find anybody for you, for your business. And they're based right here in South Florida. They service Dade and Broward. Team building is hard. We're finding that here in Miami this year. ODM Performance Solutions or ODMPSI.com can help you build a winning team and keep it together. Looking to fill an important role at the company? Reach out to him. Check it out, odmpsi.com, or give him a call at 954-434-0634.
Norman, we need to pause this surgery.
What, doctor?
Well, we need to hurry to the Xfinity Hello 2023 sale. New Xfinity customers can get 75 megabit internet for just $20 a month for 12 months with no annual contract. Plus, when you add 2 lines of Xfinity Mobile, you get $500 back for a limited time.
Drop everything. Get to the Xfinity Hello 2023 sale now through January 10th. Go to Xfinity.com/Hello 2023 to learn more. Restrictions apply. Internet offer requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After term, regular rates apply. Xfinity Internet required for Xfinity Mobile.
This podcast is brought to you by Udemy, a leading destination for learning and teaching online. Need to learn professional skills for your career? Join millions of people learning the latest skills in business and tech on Udemy. Udemy has helped learners around the world launch new careers, advance in their current field, and earn money on the side. Visit udemy.com and find the course for you.
All right, Alex, give me the stats.
All right, so you asked for the transition stats, and that's something that has kind of stuck around the same place for most of the season. So I was wondering to see if it had changed since, guys have come back into the rotation. Obviously, it's been a short amount of time, but still, all season, they allow teams to get out of transition the most when you look at frequency percentage on defense. So, and when I compared it to last season, they were also not good at it last year. The difference is they went from 24th, right, in most allowed transition by percentage to 30th, right? And then on offense, they're actually they were a better transition team last year. So they got out around the same amount, which is kind of middle of the pack towards closer to the bottom 10. But when they were actually in transition, they converted much better than than they have this season. They were, looking at it right now, they were in the top 10 in points added per 100 possessions in offense transition-wise last season and are in the bottom 5 this season.
Wow.
I mean, we thought this is going to be a better transition team. I mean, I know guys have been in and out. They haven't had the team for the whole way through. So some of that can be muddied up, but still.
Yeah, but
not to mention, I forgot to throw in the box out stuff. Kind of most of it just matches what their rebounding has been, where essentially they don't really care about offensive rebounds. So when you look at offensive rebounds or offensive box outs, the Heat are very, very low. And when you look at defensive box outs and rebounds, the Heat are pretty high. So that's kind of what it comes down to there. And that was kind of the same last season.
I feel like we could call this podcast, But Still. I feel like all of the podcasts this season could be called But Still. It's like we understand the things that are going on, right?
I mean,
we understand why they
worse.
But we understand why they couldn't make the big splash move this offseason, right? Like we understand the rationale behind it, right? We understand the difficulty of getting all their players back together healthy. We understand, that certain teams in the East got better. We understand all of this stuff. And then we look at losses to Detroit, and we look at that loss to the Lakers yesterday, and we look at some of the other losses to the loss to the Spurs at home. And we look at all of these ones piling up, and the response to it is just, but still, yes, I get it. Litany of issues here, right? Boredom, frustration, roster deficiencies, right? The disappointment of not making it to the finals last year, whatever it is you want to put together, right? Injuries, personal problems, whatever. And our response at this stage is but still, it should be better than a game over 500. But still, you should beat a team whose best player is Dennis Schroeder. That's where I understand the frustration of Heat fans right now. They don't even seem to know where to direct it, right? Because it's like they're not really directing it at specific players, right? But so it's more directed at the front office,
100%.
Right? But isn't some of this on the players though? Like, is it right?
Yeah, no, and it's also really tough, I think, for fans to see Tyler, Bam, and Jimmy all having really good statistical seasons and playing well, and it not translate to victories. And, this is the other thing I think is frustrating, is that they'll have moments where you're like, oh shit, they turned a corner. Like, this is that moment, like the Tyler Hero New Year's Eve 3-pointer. Like, there's like that kind of moment, or the Clipper win. Like, all of a sudden they string a couple together and you're feeling better. Or when they would win 4 and then lose 3, win 4, lose 3. So that kind of roller coaster, I think, often will leave fans frustrated when they're just 500, and you just didn't expect this group to be 500. Like, there's no way around that. But still, we did not expect them to lose to a team like that Laker team on the road on national TV. It's just, we could go through all the things. It's just,
they don't play well on national TV too. That's the other thing. Like they don't show up for those games. And
only if the teams are playing their stars.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. It's like, so there's this letdown with this team. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but I'm going to say, but still here too. We are all believers in this head coach, right? But still, if it was a different head coach in a different city, we would be saying, why are they not getting up for these teams? Like, why are they slipping? So, no, is he going to get fired? No. Are we ever going to call for him to be fired? No.
I don't know how much more he can do, to be honest.
That's the thing. So, but but still, I mean, it just keeps going. I mean, I'm not even trying to do it now. Like, but still, like, I don't want to watch that last night. Like, I'm watching that game last night, and yeah, I mean, all of you were sick, so it was kind of like, all right, forget it. We're not going to get into this tonight. But but still, as a coach, I guess, of this podcast, I should have gotten your asses all in gear and put you on a stream anyway. But still, at about 11:30 at night, okay, Eastern time, I was like, I want to go to sleep. Like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like that, the Heat last night against the Lakers were not a product worth watching.
Abysmal.
And that's tough.
Right.
For those, even for those of us who have not watched every single Heat game of the Riley era, but especially for those who are old enough to say that and wise enough to say that we've watched all of these teams. When you see that kind of effort against that team, I mean, what are we talking about here? It's beyond repair. And that's where I feel like eventually the front office is going to have to make a decision here.
I mean, last night.
Still, man. Alex, what decision do they make? Because I mean, just throwing a physical knock you on your ass power forward, like, change this? Like that's really what I don't know.
I mean, look, man, I think they have to do something. And this isn't the podcast for that. I think just the more that time goes by and we keep reliving this roller coaster that Leif was alluding to there, where it's just kind of the same thing over and over and over. And even if I do feel a little better about where they are right now than I did a couple of weeks ago, now with the, a couple of the guys back and the way that they've been looking and helping out, but still, right? Like, it's not enough. Right. And as much as Spo's going to say we have enough, it's not enough. And not that, getting a 4 is going to solve all the hustle issues. I just think in general, it would help stabilize their roster a lot if they got a 2-way power forward who you felt can close for you in the playoffs. Not that Caleb can't, right? I'm definitely not trying to say that. I just think they need to.
But Alex, but still,
really the point is like,
it looks like Caleb's hit the wall a little bit too, which I feel like is exacerbating the situation here, because
that's the thing. Like, they're asking too much of
I know
guys that are good. And so especially with guys going in and out, I just, they're having to do a whole lot. And I think it kind of, they're feeling it in their legs. I just think like the blueprint ends up coming down to the guys that you trust are being overtasked. Right. And that's kind of just where I'm at right now. Like, you look at the games that are versus the better teams in the league, they get up for it. And then you see, like last night, man, because obviously we haven't spoken about it. Last night, I don't know what it was. I think it was worse than all the other bad losses. And there's been so many this season, so many, right? And I haven't forgot about those. We're not even halfway through yet. But last night, man, losing to the Lakers like that, where Russ and Schroeder are just getting to the rim at will. And yes, the Lakers, their whole like offensive game plan is getting to the rim. They're very good at it, at getting there and finishing there, by the way. That's like the one thing they're actually good at as a team, except a lot of that is LeBron and AD. And yes, Schroeder and Russ can get to the rim a little bit, but what they did last night was unreal. Like, yes, Schroeder should not have been out of the league or whatever, or close to out of the league, but my God, he is not that. He's a Heat killer, but he is not that. He was looking like an absolute all-star last night. I'm looking like, man, maybe they should trade Kyle for him.
Right?
No, I don't really mean that. I'm again just channeling.
No. I'm not saying you mean that, but still, Alex, I mean, I'm getting a little frustrated watching the other point guards on other teams, sometimes 2 point guards on other teams, outplay the Heat's $28 million point guard. Like, that's.
You sold me a bill of goods that said we were getting a 2-way point of attack defender, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, Russell Westbrook.
No, you're right though. He hasn't been.
They want to ship Russ. They've wanted to ship, and I think Russ has done a great job adjusting to the bench last night. Although listening, I switched to ESPN broadcasts, and I mean, Jeff Van. I mean, that they spent like 20 minutes, praising Russ. It's like the Heat didn't even exist. Although in reality, the Heat really didn't exist last night. But
first all-star to ever come off the bench.
Right, ever, right. But Russ, I give him credit for it, but I mean, they've wanted nothing to do with him in Los Angeles anymore, and he's outplaying Kyle. And Dennis Schroeder, as I mentioned, could not find the team, and he's outplaying Kyle. And so you kind of are like, okay, like, I get it that Kyle's role is different with this team than theirs would be last night, but still, I would expect more, right? Like, I think it's reasonable to expect more. And you look at the numbers that Jimmy, and look, Hero had a bad night. Okay. He had an off night, but he's entitled to an off night because, I believe, right? He's entitled to one. Okay. But, when Jimmy and Bam play that well, or at least they didn't play, I don't think they played. I don't think Jimmy played that well. Bam played really well. But when they're putting up those kind of numbers, you should beat that team. And I think the point you make too about why this is one of the worst losses, or maybe the worst loss, losing in that building has to kill Pat. With this group against that group,
so bad. Like, that group is so bad.
In that city, though, like in that place, like he doesn't like to lose there. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, this is not a year you lose a game to the Lakers. Like not when they don't have their two linchpins, and they're not even good with the two linchpins.
They've had 10 worse losses.
Don't go through them. I don't even want to hear it. All right, but still, check out our sponsors. Use the code 5FIVE at Prize Picks. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. Better Edge, 5RSN. And there you can get $20 to play. That's peer-to-peer betting. That's pretty damn cool. We just did the Setting the Edge show on the YouTube channel too. So join our contest. Also, Water Cleanup of Florida. We always mention them at odmpsi.com. But still, we are going to make it up late for a post-game show after the Phoenix game. We didn't discuss the Suns. The Suns are not playing well. They don't have Devin Booker. You would expect the Heat to win this game, to close the road trip strong. But still.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Regional Sports Network.
Help your small business thrive and stay connected with the Comcast Business Complete Connectivity Solution. It's the largest, fastest, reliable network, advanced gig speed Wi-Fi, and cyber threat protection in one solution. Plus, when you add Comcast Business Mobile, you can save up to 60% a year on your wireless bill. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Restrictions apply. Actual speeds vary. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig internet. Mobile savings compares pricing of top 3 carriers. Comcast Business Internet required.
At the Home Depot, we're dedicated to helping you build the skills that get your home projects done right. That's why we offer free and interactive online DIY workshops. During the live streams, our knowledgeable associates help you tackle your DIY projects no matter your age or skill level. You can learn how to install new single-pole switches, as well as standard duplex and GFCI outlets. Register for free at homedepot.com/workshops. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.